Hello, everybody. We are back for another installment of our Just Love Book Circle. And I'm super excited to be here this afternoon or morning for our friends down in the South Pacific because this time around, we're going to be doing Reader's Choice. And on the screen with me this afternoon are three avid book readers and at least two authors. See, Nathan, I did include myself because I have one book to my name, which is my dissertation, but we're going to see if we can fix that. Well, I guess technically I've written a few articles, so technically. Marcia, you're a writer too. Hey, we're all writers. Here we go.
Hey.
So, joining me this afternoon is Marcia Nordmeyer, Jen Silva, Nathan Brown, and we are going to jump right in and talk about the thing we love to talk about, which is what have we read that we think people should be reading? So we'll start with that. What have we read that we think people should be reading, whether this year or in the past, when we think of the work of Just Love Collective? Um, so, who wants to go first?
Well, first, it's just a terribly complicated and difficult question you've set for us. And you said we needed to try and keep it down to two or three. And, I've got shelves and shelves of books that I'd love to recommend to everybody. And then, of course, there's also the simple answer that we have to give is that the Bible, the Gospels, all of these kind of things are our foundational text for the work of Just Love. So, there's a really big answer, there's a really simple answer, and we're trying to find somewhere in between those two extremes.
Yeah, yeah. And Marcia, you're sitting in a library.
I am. I work here. I feel like I live here some days. My daughter is currently boycotting pants.
Oh,
So I figured it'd probably just be safe to come here since the cameras are on. So here I am. Good to see you all.
good to have you with us. Jen, could you introduce yourself to this community?
Yes, absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm Jen Silva. I joined Just Love Collective about a year ago when they had their conference. And so I'm really excited to be a part of this group and, yeah, just add some insight and wisdom that I have learned throughout these books.
Awesome. So, I don't want to hog the microphone, so I won't go first. Though I have three books that are here, and I think, Marcia, you have one for me that I also want to recommend, which means technically I have four. So,
Yeah.
I won't go first. So, who wants to go first? What's a book that you think that you've read that has influenced you in the way you think about justice and God and love in the world?
Well, I want to tell you all about my favorite day of the year. So I work here in the university library. Of course, we have books that support university student curriculum. We also have children's books. And one of my favorite colleagues, who I hope is listening right now, Dr. Jill Morstead, love, love, love this lady. She brings her English 110 students in once a semester. And she has this brilliant assignment where she says, you're going to write a paper on what can a grown-up learn from children's books? And she makes them check out, children's picture books. And so I get to whisk them into a side room in the library and read them a children's book that has something to say to a grown-up. So I read to them, the Care Bears and the Day That Nobody Shared.
Huh.
And we talked about billionaires and socialism. It was a great day. And then that night, my daughter, who's 7 years old and boycotting pants today, um, she she said, "Mom, can I come in? Can I read you a good night story?" So she pulls this gem out of her pile and she read it to me.
Oh,
She told me who gave it to her. The woman who gave it to her is a dear family friend of ours who just graduated with her PhD. in clinical child psychology. So she knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
And um, this, sorry, that was my phone. This is a book about being empathetic towards somebody who has depression.
Hmm.
And it's like, they're all like, what's up? What do you want to do? And the cat's just like, I can't be bothered. I can't be bothered. No, I don't want to do anything. And um, let me get over here. I'm just feeling sad at the moment. All I want to do is nothing. And they're just like, oh, yeah, okay. Sometimes all I want to do is nothing too. Can we do nothing with you too?
Huh.
And it's just, it's the empathy for me.
Yeah.
It's like, don't force your depressed friend to go out to dinner if they don't want to. If they need to like be an introvert
Mm-hmm.
and you need to do nothing together,
Mm-hmm.
then that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought it was a really beautiful little book. And sometimes some grown-ups need to get a clue about it's okay to just chill.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I feel like someone in Dr. Jill Morstad's class could possibly write a nice long paper
Mm-hmm.
about having empathy
Mhm.
during times of mental illness
Yep.
and feline obesity with that book. So it's a good one.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I love that you brought this book to this Reader's Choice book circle, because I think, based on the things that have been happening nationally and I dare
Mhm.
say internationally, that empathy and the ability to sit with people as they're trying to make sense and make meaning of the challenges that we're facing is such a great recommendation, right? If
Mm,
yeah,
Yes.
mm,
yeah.
yeah.
It's numbing.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we just need to sit back and feel it and just say, wow, that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to watch the news today.
Mm-hmm.
Can we watch Survivor from 2003 and just pretend that none of this is happening? Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Love that recommendation, Marcia. Love that recommendation.
Mm. I reckon I've got a recommendation that kind of can take us the next step there. And this is a book I read earlier in the year. If the Ocean Has a Soul.
There you go.
Um, if the Ocean Has a Soul by Rachel Jordan. And firstly, it's a fantastic book cover.
Yes, it is.
Um, and but the lady is a marine biologist and an expert in coral, and but also a person of faith. And this is a reflection on her experience of working to protect and save coral reefs, often um, unsuccessfully.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's quite a bit in this. This is kind of a memoir. It's her work as a marine biologist and someone of faith, and bringing those two things together. Sometimes the writing and the lessons and the moralizing are a little bit clunky,
Mm-hmm.
because she tries to have a lesson at the end of each chapter that's kind of, and this is the moral of the story.
Right.
Um, and some of those feel a little bit forced, but I actually, so I'm. It's got some challenges from a writing perspective,
Mm-hmm.
but so much of what she talks about is grief.
Mm-hmm.
How do we, when we're passionate about something, when we've been working for something, and we see it dying, when we see us losing, how do we process that grief,
Mm-hmm.
continue to get up and do the work tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
and to be able to keep working for something even when we are losing, because it matters, because we believe that it's part of God's intention for creation, and to be able to continue to live well, and but also that grief is legitimate when we lose something that we love, when we're losing the battles of in our society, in our environment. Um, and to me, those chapters were the ones that were most poignant and kind of most relevant earlier in the to our lives at the moment. and particularly to the work of justice. I read this book earlier in the year. It only came out this year. And that's how I kind of narrowed down my list, is that these are books I've read this year, is the three that I have in my stack here.
Yeah.
Um, and so this is one that I recommend for it, for the, not so much for its writing, but although she does have some fantastic descriptions of her interactions in the natural world, her learning to dive, her um, the coral and the marine creatures that she interacts with and has meaningful, builds meaningful relationships with, but also the reflections on loss and grief and lament,
Mm,
and continuing to turn up and do the work.
Wow, that's beautiful.
love that.
I love that. I
I'm
think
like keeping a list of all of these.
I think this is one of these things that is going to be a problem for all of us book people, because we'll come in with a lot longer list than we started with, and
yeah,
then we feel like we're even further behind one another.
yeah. I
Library book displays are going to happen based off of this conversation.
yes, yeah. So I want to jump in with this book that I listened to, and I also have, as you can see,
Mm,
the actual
Mm,
book, and it's Walter Brueggemann's um, Reality, Grief, and Hope: Three Urgent Prophetic Tasks. And
mm,
I found this book to be very helpful in thinking about the work of speaking truths to challenging events that happen. This was written specifically to as a response to 9/11, the catastrophe that happened.
mm,
What Brueggemann does is he um, he looks at the 9/11 catastrophe as analogous to what happened in ancient Israel and their response to the destruction of Jerusalem. And he talks about the importance of truth telling, right? To confront any ideology, especially the one of American exceptionalism, um, and allow us to actually grieve so that we can overcome denial and acknowledge reality, right? While at the same time looking towards hope. And so I really love Brueggemann's work. I'm new to Brueggemann, as I've shared with you when we read The Prophetic Imagination earlier in the year. That this was another of Brueggemann's books that to me just spoke to my core as a chaplain, which is you cannot heal what you don't reveal, right?
mm,
You can't work through something that you don't actually name. And so, this intentionality of saying, hey, what's really going on? What has happened? Let's deal with the feelings, the grief, the sadness that comes as a result of the harms that are done or the harms that I may be complicit in, whether I know it or not, because my government may make decisions, right? Or people that lead me might make decisions. And then learning how to speak up and hold people accountable, and then moving towards hope. Because sometimes as Christians, Nathan, because you named at the top of the call that the Bible, it's like a duh moment. The Bible should be our our primer when it comes to doing this work of faith and justice, and exhibiting the love of God in the world. And at the same time, while that is our primer, we need so many ways of interpreting God's love and grace and being able to name and articulate hurt and harm to humanity so that we can actually lean into what God is offering us. And I think this book is, as he says, it's an urgent call. I mean, 9/11 happened. I was still living in New York at the time. That's many years ago. And yet we're still having 9/11 type things happening today. Right. And so I highly recommend this work from Brueggemann. Again, Reality, Grief, Hope, the three urgent prophetic tasks. It should be on your list of things to read if you haven't read it already.
and very much an expansion on his, what he talks about in the prophetic imagination of, how the empire pushes us to numbness, and that one of our first and best acts of resistance is to resist becoming numb,
That is correct.
and to be able to feel the grief and the sorrow of our broken world.
Mhm.
And of course, because of the faith and hope we have, we can go there without being stuck there,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then to step forward into action into the world.
yeah,
The act of hope.
yes. Well said, my editor friend. Jen, you're up next. What do you have?
Yeah, of course. So for me, I want to recommend The Blue Sweater Bridging the Gap Between Rich and Poor in an Interconnected World by Jacqueline Novogratz. So this is it. This was recommended to me about 15 years ago when I was taking a global health class. But what's so unique about this book is the reason why it's called The Blue Sweater. This is her memoir and how she started the Acumen Fund. So when she was about, I want to say 12 or 13, she gave up her blue sweater to the Goodwill. And this was a sweater that meant so much to her, but she outgrew it. So it was something that she really loved, and she was very connected to this sweater. And her mom would put her initials on all of her clothing. So after high school, she ended up going to Rwanda, and she was walking the street. She was going to the grocery store, and she saw a young boy with her blue sweater. So
Wow.
she ran up to the boy. Yeah, she ran up to the boy and she's like, "Can I look at your tag?" And when she looked at the tag, it was her initials.
Wow.
So it
Mm,
made her realize how interconnected we are globally.
mm,
So what ended up happening is that because of that, she wanted to learn, like, how does trade happen, how do interconnectedness within like different nations happen. And so she wanted to build a fund where she can have economic stability for people overseas, but then how we can work here. So she talks about her failures, her successes, her humility. She talks about what does it mean to have economic equity for everyone, so the poor and how the rich can come and support one another. So I think it's amazing. It's like we're trying to figure out, like, how do we start something like an acumen fund to help others? If we have the wealth, how do we support the poor? And how do we get through some of those failures, some of those challenges that come with starting a nonprofit and to sustain like different economies across the world? So if you're interested in that, again, I have a passion for global health. So this was definitely one that I was drawn to.
Beautiful.
all right. Next book. I'll go again. And I want to recommend this book. It's called Justice in an Unjust World by Karen Labax. It's Foundations for a Christian Approach to Justice. As you can see, this is a book that I have read, highlighted, bookmarked, come back to. It is, for me, a must read for anybody that wants to really engage with theologically why justice work is not an option for those of us who follow Jesus. And Karen Labax, I came upon this book when I was working on my dissertation because the ethic of justice for me is central to the work that I'm called to. And Labax is Canadian, and she is an ethicist, and she works. She just tells the story of from a biblical perspective that identifies from the beginning in the garden that there's a rupture in the relationship between humanity and God, that God rules that this has happened. And she calls us into reflection on the Christian's complicity with injustice in the world. And then we move from rue. Let me pull up my notes here. We move from rue to ruminations, and this is her contribution is this invitation to an ethical methodology to navigate injustice in an unjust world. And one of the things that stood out to me in this book that Labax names is so often people are, their understanding of who God is certainly demonstrated first and foremost by those of us who identify ourselves as followers of this God. And one of the things she names is that I took to heart was so often people are saying, well, why won't God do something? And she posits, well, God is saying you're there, do something, right? Like we're looking for some kind of thing in the sky when the truth of the matter is, those of us who are image bearers, those of us who are followers, we have the capacity, the skill sets, the ability to do the thing, to bring about change, to bring about justice when injustice is just rampant in the land. And she leads us all the way to this idea of jubilee, right? Which is part of the first in the First Testament, this idea of a year when all the things that have been all the people who've been enslaved, all the lands that have been taken get restored and returned to their rightful owners, so the land can actually rest. And so she just really invites us into reflecting and walking through this ethic of justice, and this approach to justice that I think has changed my life. It's changed the way that I look at and understand injustice and my part in it. And so I would say I don't know if we'll read this book in the future, but I definitely know this is something I highly recommend to anybody who is trying to make sense of why should a Christian person get involved in justice work. Yeah, I just got
Yeah,
excited again about going through the book again. Whew.
yeah, what she said. Yep. I'll go next. So I'm a big sucker. Someone sent me a reel of a Daily Show interview and I bought the book.
Huh.
I bought the book that's going viral, The Separation of Church and Hate.
Yes.
This it's meant to be a comedy. Um and it's very, very funny. The full title is Separation of Church and Hate, A Sane Person's Guide to Taking Back the Bible from Fundamentalist Fascists, and Flock Fleecing Frauds.
Wow.
Uh, the author, John Fugel, saying um, his dad was a friar and his mom was a nun, but they met each other and decided a different life path was called for. Um, Basically, you know, the holidays are coming up, and if you will be sitting around a holiday table with people who don't see anything wrong with Christian nationalism and whatever um, else might be going on in America, and cherry picking the Bible to find reasons to hate people. Um, what this guy has done is he's forced critical thinking, and he's like, no, 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 you don't get to use the Bible as hate ammunition because that's not who Jesus was. Um, and by using his sense of humor, he's actually painted an authentic
Wow.
portrait of Christ. This is not a book for children. It has some grown up words in it. So I will not be reading this to my pants boycotting daughter. Um, I am reading it with a student here at the university, so I bought 2 copies of it, and we're reading it together for our weekly get-togethers. And you're not gonna agree, like as Adventists, we're not gonna agree with every single point the author makes, and I don't think that he intends for his readers to agree with every single point he makes, but he makes a lot of them so that you have a buffet of replies for, let's say, Bible thumping, homophobic, Christian nationalist language that you may encounter. So it might be a good gift book. So I'm enjoying it. I've got like a couple chapters left, and you'll Pulse readers will get my review.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it very much, and it looks really good in my purse. So that Wednesday nights when my daughter is wearing pants and she's at her adventures club and I'm waiting for her, I whip it out in the church lobby and I'm like this, and I get like, oh, what you reading there? And I can say, oh, I'm on the chapter called Thou Shalt Not Hate the Gays. Would you like to discuss? So I'm enjoying this book very, very much.
Oh my gosh, Marcia, I love that. I
Yes.
loved there alliteration there with F's at the what was it wasn't alliteration the last part, the right before you got to
A,
the end.
a sane person's guide to taking back the Bible from fundamentalists, fascists, and flock fleecing frauds.
Come on.
He
Hey,
really calls out
Yeah,
televangelists.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah.
So,
Oh, I'm here.
um, Dillis
so I
is so
really,
good.
I really
Yeah.
like your use of reading as activism, and perhaps
Yes,
even
Yes.
passive aggressive activism.
yeah.
One of my favorite things, and this might get me into trouble, and I don't care. Um, One of my favorite things to do is just a well placed book on a themed book display.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like when it's Constitution Week, and I can put up, you know, the daughters of the American Revolution people came and put up their, very patriotic display, that was all, whitewashed, yay Thomas Jefferson. And then right on the other side, I put up, the 1619 Project and Born
Yeah.
on the Water and everything else. They put dum dums on their display. So I sent someone to the store. I was like, I need you to get like a whole lot of Smarties, and we're going to put them on our display. Just being able to be passive aggressive,
Oh my goodness.
with books, it just warms my heart, guys.
Hmm. That's great.
Mhm, mhm.
Love
Yes.
Okay,
it. Love it.
nice work. I have a book which I think fits in the category of mining popular culture for the good things we can see. And of course, Awake by Jen Hatemaker is one of the big memoirs of this summer, and something worth um, yeah, checking out. A good, an easy read, and something that. But there's some really good things to think about in it. And the thing that particularly caught my attention is pretty much bang on halfway through, where she makes this comment. She talks about there were two threads that will ultimately undo my life, my career, and my simple way of understanding the world forever. For now, just the first, racism. White supremacy was a concept I had zero exposure to in my assigned, chosen, homogenous environments. But once you nose around the rubble of injustice, racism emerges instantly. It is simply everywhere. It is fundamentally dispersed through the air filters. Racism was the bedrock of the American origin story and has remained a scourge on our culture at every level, in every system, throughout every generation. And that caught my attention because it's simply how I've tried to describe my experience of, as a white guy from suburban Australia, discovering racism, having this passion for justice and looking at, of course, when you start doing that, you start looking at injustice. And the way I've termed it is that when you get to this point, you start every rock you turn over of injustice, you find underneath is racism. That this idea that people are not the same, that they don't feel the same, that they don't deserve the same, that they are different levels of humanity, and that this is why one of the sort of operating systems of injustice in our world, and certainly one of the reasons why we allow injustice to persist in the ways that we do in the world. And so to find this in this kind of book really caught my attention. She spends the next couple of pages expanding upon that. And really, that was the experience I had possibly about 10 years ago when I really started reading some of the things that were around that time, as some of the stuff I was doing in the context of a study program that I was doing. And so it caught my attention to find someone such as Jen Hatmaker making a statement as bold and as direct as that, right at the halfway point in what is probably, well, is one of the best-selling memoirs of this year, and certainly in that kind of Christian evangelical community. Definitely, not a book that I would necessarily recommend unless you're a fan. And if you're a fan, then you'll be happy.
Yeah, I appreciate that recommendation, Nathan. I think a quote that something that I picked up from Labax's book, and I that I wanted to share. She talks about Mang Huan, a peasant leader, and he suggests that people live in two different worlds. You live in the world of the birds of the air, and we in that of the fishes of the sea. The
Mm,
implications of these two worlds are profound. Birds move fast because they fly, argues Manhuang, but when we fishes move, we move relatively slower because we have to swim in an ocean of
mm,
usury, tenancy, and other unjust forces. Oppressors and oppressed do not inhabit the same world. The struggles of the oppressed against their ocean of unjust forces are very difficult for the oppressor to understand. Moreover, says Manhuang, very few of the educated people will come into our world, and we see the reality of our problems and aspirations from our point of view. When I
mm,
read that at the beginning of my journey with Karen Labax and her work, that really struck me, this idea of how we can all be in the same space, and yet because of our social locations, identities,
mm,
experiences, and privileges, that we're not able to actually engage with people who are from other spaces. So I really love
mm,
Nathan and Marcia, like the books that you've recommended that we're talking about right now, because worldview does shape
Mhm.
the way we come to this work. And really, throwing back to one of our first books, Troubling the Water, this idea
mm,
of the term sawubona, I see you, like to really be able to say, I need to see things from other people's perspectives. And then when I see things from their perspective, identify, am I complicit? Identify,
mm,
am I privileged in those spaces? And if I am complicit, how do I make amends? You know,
mm,
if I am, if I am, if I am an oppressor, then what do I do to come alongside the people who are being oppressed, both by my complicity and or my ignorance, right? Because
Mhm.
mm.
what do we say to the person who says, "Well, I didn't know, so so don't." I don't,
Yeah.
I don't, I don't like the way you're making me feel. What would you say to someone who might
Mm,
Once you
experience
know better, do better.
that? Hmm. Hmm.
mm.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's just that basic recognition that that the experience of others, even that may not be too far from us, of the world in which we both inhabit, is it can be so dramatically different,
Yeah.
um, and often for unchosen characteristics.
Yeah.
For you know, to me, it was one of those moments in my life. Empathy, understanding was when, for the first time, I lived with my wife. Um, and recognized that her experience of the world and stepping outside our house was a different thing to me. As
Mm.
a large white guy, she is a much smaller female. Things that she had to be conscious of that I didn't, that never occurred to me.
Mm.
And that's just a microcosm of the world that we live in so many ways. And it's this curiosity and empathy that are the key to having real compassion and seeking that, not that privilege is something we feel guilty about, but I just love how Dr. Ferreras at the Just Love Summit last
Yeah.
year, reframed this idea of privilege as actually what we want for everybody.
Yeah.
Um, that we want everybody to have the good things that we can enjoy in lives. So it's not that we should feel bad about it, it's that we should be working actively. How can we share that? How can we lift others up
Mm.
to some of those opportunities and experiences?
Mm. 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 I love that. I love that. I love that reminder too of Dr. Ferreras inviting us to reframe that. Thank you, Nathan.
Mm.
Hmm. Yeah. Jen, you're up next.
Yeah, no, I'm like definitely processing everything that you're saying. Like I'm like an internal processor, so like my mind is going like 100 miles per hour right now. Like as you guys are
Same.
recommending and themes, and I'm like, oh my goodness. But the next book that I want to suggest is Jesus for President
Ooh.
by Shane Claiborne and Chris Haw. So
Yeah.
I know
Yes.
this book circle just did the Irresistible Revolution, but I don't know about you, but I would love Jesus as my president right now. And so what they go into is just what would be those politics, right? He encourages us to live as exiles here in this earth, that we are basically in this world, but not of this world. And
Mm,
so, what does that mean? What does that look like? So, if we were to bring the kingdom of heaven here on earth, which is a commission that we have, like what would be practically those politics? And so, he goes into it. I'm not going to go into all the details, but even for anyone who's like artistic, like they have like such good imagery in here. Like, he has the Declaration of Independence, and then he said, "What is the Declaration of Christ?" And so
mm,
it is just like this
Mm.
play on words, like what happens in politics and what party we should truly be affiliated with.
mm,
So this is a really good one too.
mm. I love that idea of Jesus for president and thinking about Jesus for president based on what Jesus actually says as opposed to our interpretation or someone else's interpretation of that, right?
Yeah.
I remember when I first read that book many years ago, and the first thing that caught my attention was these guys really paid some attention to how they laid it out and the design around it, and that's worth looking at this book just for that alone. It's a bit more common these days, but when they did it back there in their day, it was kind of this, wow, this is publishing, this is very cool. Um, and but I think one of the cool things about Jesus for President is that even the title reminds us of what the original statement, Jesus is Lord, was. It was a political statement that was rebellion against the empire, and you know draws us into yes, imagining what the world would be if Jesus was president or Jesus was Lord and Caesar wasn't, or whoever else wasn't. But it also is this idea that it is pushing back against the existing powers. That our faith must be, if it's true to what it is called to be, it must be counter empire. It must be revolutionary in that kind of sense, and that it would always push against those in power, whoever they might be, but perhaps more so when they have pretensions to be Lord, or the greater the claims of the people in power, the greater the resistance that Jesus and his claims make to that.
Mm, mm,
Yeah, Nathan, and one thing that really stood out to me was an example of Mother Teresa, and how like a hot topic for Christians is like abortion, and how
Mm.
she actually walked with women and children, girls that were 16 and going to give birth, and how she said, "I will take your babies if you cannot take care of them," and how like practical that was, and basically how she got mother in her name was because she was actually a mother to these children and orphans
Mm.
for women that could not, take care of their children. So that is a practical way of how she embodied Christ here on earth.
I love that. I love that because I think one of the things that I struggle with when I engage with people, or I shouldn't say I engage because I'm not really engaging in that conversation. However, when I listen to people, um, spout all the ills in the world and the things that need to be done. And if you're a Christian, you shouldn't. I'm always looking for then what are we doing? Like, what should we be doing? Right. About a year ago, I remembered being over at one of our sites to do to teach a class, co-teach a class with someone, and a young man walked in and he had just his stuff in a bag, and we were like, "How can we help you?" And someone had dropped him off, and he was looking for a church, and he had told us he had just been let out of jail and he was just looking for a place um, where he could just get himself set up and acclimated, right? And so, Jen, you're familiar with our community, so we're in the suburbs, so to speak. We are, in this space where people are both quite affluent, and then we have people right across the freeway who are not. And I remember just in that moment wondering, where are our churches? Where are our members? Where are our communities where we have homes that people can, if you find yourself unhoused, if you find yourself fleeing some kind of domestic intimate partner violence situation, or if you are just getting out of jail, who are the people that are stepping up to say, hey, here's a place that you can come get some food, you can get some rest, let's provide these resources. And I think now more than ever, We should not be lamenting the ills of the world because, as Karen LeBax would say, justice, we're the ones that are to be the hands and feet of Christ. We're the ones that ought to be creating those things and not arguing about it, right?
Indeed, indeed. So I need to I get a bonus book here because someone in the comments put it up, and so this was one that I had in my stack that wasn't there, but of course, you know,
Oh, good one.
Yes, that is a good one.
I've kind of said that The Cross and the Lynching Tree should be basically compulsory reading for being a Christian in the world today. Sam recommended it, so Sam's on something good. So this is Sam getting a word in even when he's not on the call. Um, and I'm happy to be his mule to do that because
Amazing foresight, Nathan.
Yes.
Bravo.
well, I told you that I couldn't narrow down, so I brought a pile of six, even though I didn't.
I have a lot too. So I love that book. Highly recommend James Cone. Highly, highly recommend. I agree.
So for those taking notes at home, this is one you've got to add to the list, even if we don't talk
Mhm.
about it at length this morning.
Mhm.
Well, and since we love our friends in the Just Love Collective,
Yes, you beat me to it.
I have these. My ring light is glaring a little
Yep,
bit.
we see it
There
now.
we go.
You
You
know,
see
yeah,
it?
yeah.
If I hold it just like this.
Just like the left hand is
I have
great.
read both of them this year.
Yeah, and
I
so have
have.
I.
Yes.
Yes, I was trying to
Read
pull up
them both.
Practical Justice and Chris's
Yes.
book, Imagine Life. Absolutely. Here's a book. Go
Page
ahead.
72. Page 72, Chris Blake. Page
Oh,
72.
it's local.
This
Yes.
this brings me hope. This brings me so much hope. It doesn't matter what the General Conference does. Anyway,
All religion is local. You are absolutely
it
correct.
is. It is.
It is.
There was a line that I came across recently. I think it was a podcast I was listening to where they were making hats that was keep church small, local, and weird.
Yes.
And I think
Yes.
that's a pretty good job description of what the church should
Oh my
be.
gosh, I love that. I love that.
Small, local, and weird. Oh, that's beautiful.
Yes. Because there's room for everybody. I think that's what I love about. Listen, y'all, I could sit here for hours and hours and hours and never get tired of talking about Jesus and how Jesus's walk on this earth reflects something that is so countercultural, even today, right? Like Jesus got
Mhm.
in trouble because he was always at somebody's house party. The comments were like, you couldn't possibly be the son of God because you're always hanging out with sex workers, with the people on the margins. You're always at somebody's house. You're always eating and drinking. Like, what? What kind of person are you? Isn't that decadent? Isn't that
Mm.
something? That's something I want to be. I want to be in the spaces where
He takes too
everybody.
many handouts.
What a thing, right? Because he had nowhere to live. If he wasn't hanging out at Mary and Martha's, he was dependent on whoever would let him in and give him.
Jesus needs to pull himself up by his bootstraps.
Oh my gosh!
Quit taking handouts from these people.
Listen, so countercultural, and I continue to be amazed by this Jesus. And I want to live my life following this Jesus. And so I'm loving just the offerings that we're bringing this afternoon or evening or morning, depending on where you are in the world, whenever you watch this, if you're not watching live. I see you. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm here for it, Marcia.
Oh, my friend Tanya Cochran gave me this book. What is God like? This is what I bring to my little Sabbath school class. Once in a while, it uses a variety of pronouns to describe God, a variety of images to describe God. And this book, it just sits on my desk here at work because sometimes I just need it. It's not part of the library collection. This is mine.
Yeah.
God is like the flame of a candle, warm and inviting. God is like an artist. God is like three dancers, graceful and precise.
Oh.
Clearly gender fluid, clearly not a straight white Caucasian European Adonis, like we like to paint him. She is your protector. He is trustworthy. They are friends when you feel alone. I mean, it's just beautiful. And every time I read it in my Sabbath school class, there's a mob of parents around me afterwards asking for bibliographic information. So there you go. Beautiful book.
Awesome. Thank you for
Yeah,
sharing that. And since you
yeah.
did that, I'm going to put a book up that I have not read yet, but I do have a copy of. And this is Holy
Oh,
Troublemakers and
oh, what?
Healing
Oh, what? What? What?
about
What?
Green Acre. Oh, look at us!
Oh, look
Look at us!
oh,
Yeah, so I haven't read it yet, but I have it on
it's
my
so
list
good.
of things of books
It's
to
so
read.
good. This is
And I
not part
have
of the
read it, so
library
I can add to
collection.
this fan club.
Yeah. No, this copy is
No, it's
also
great.
mine, but it lives here.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's a great. It's a great book, and I think when it first came out, I bought copies for all my nieces and nephews for Christmas, whatever year it was,
Mhm.
and but also read it. I think Ange and I actually read it through together,
Mm.
um, as just simple short stories, but also always prompting and jumping off point for so many other things you want to explore or discover in the world. So, highly recommend that. And Dillis, you need to give it a little bit of time.
Oh,
I
it's
listen,
so
Nathan.
good.
The way that I'm going to pack a bag to go home my own office of all the books. See, that's what happens because I've been listening to books and doing other things. And in order to actually enjoy one of these kinds of
Mm,
books, one must
mm,
sit down
that's right.
with a
But
nice.
also another book that has great art. Like
Yes,
every one of the stories has a
yes,
unique piece of art that it portrays the person. And
yeah.
as a book editor, we need to point out some of these
Mhm.
things that a number of the books that we're talking about today are books. One of the things that I push when we're working on a book is to make the book look like somebody cared about it.
Mm,
And some of these books that we've seen where people go the extra mile to create something that's beautiful. It's not just words on a page. It's an experience of beauty in working your way through it. So, we need more of those kind of books as well.
absolutely agree, Nathan Brown. Absolutely agree with that. Oh, wow. What else do we have?
Chris is
Okay.
saying The Big Orange Splot by Daniel Manis, Pink Water.
Hmm.
I have not heard of that one, and I don't know if we have it here, or else I'd run and grab it.
Yeah.
Mm,
Did
that's a
you
new one on
know?
me.
The one of the silver linings of COVID that I'm not sad about is if you go into YouTube and type in just about any children's book, you're gonna find it. Because during the COVID time, so many libraries were doing online story
Yeah.
time,
Okay.
and they're all still there. So after the best day in the library ever, when Dr. Jill brought her class in, there was one student who needed a follow-up email, and I said, if you type the paper bag princess into YouTube, you can find the author telling the story, and it's amazing. And I put a link in there. Oh my goodness. I mean, I've seen that video 100 times and it never gets old. And that is the most feminist children's book of all time. That is the paper bag princess. When the very last line for the happy ending is, and they didn't get married after all. Oh, oh just it's
Love
beautiful.
it.
Oh,
Love it. Love
every
I'm
it.
I
getting
recommend it to
annoyed
college
here by
students.
Sam and Chris being having too much input for not being on the call.
I think they
They're
need
trying to take
to.
over from a distance.
I think they need to be on the next one.
Yep.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
So they need to keep their list for next time because, you know. Okay, I've got a book and
Yes.
I need to bring something that's uniquely Australian.
Yes.
And I said that my main list of things was sharing books that I've read this year. So I've read this one last year and this year. And last year I read it because it was so I just wanted to get through it so quickly, and because it's so good, so great material, I just ploughed through it in a day or so. Um, and So this year I took some time and read it in a week to take a bit more time with it. Murrayang is a Indigenous word. Stan Grant is perhaps one of the best known Indigenous Aboriginal Wurundjeri men in Australia. He has been a journalist for many years, including being a war correspondent with CNN and Al Jazeera and various other things all over the world. But has come back to Australia and has actually had a turn to theology late in life. And he's done a PhD in theology. And Murrayang is referencing the time, it's kind of a talking about the time of eternity or the time of heaven and how that impacts on our understanding of life in this world. It is a fascinating exploration of the resonances between his Indigenous culture and religion and his Christian faith. Also reflecting on his personal experiences and his position as an marginalised Aboriginal person in Australia, and even though because he is someone who's very well known in Australia, but someone who still has to endure racism is marked by the colour of his skin, and that's part of his experience. But the fascinating thing is this is also a deeply personal book.
Mm.
So it goes everywhere as far as eternity, but every second chapter is a reflection on his relationship with his aging father.
Oh.
And,
Mm.
and that's just a page or two between the more substantive chapters where he just pauses and talks about his father, who very getting close to the end of his life. It's a beautiful book, deeply profound. Um, One of those ones that I had to reread simply because I knew there was so much more in it that I hadn't got. Um, so, if you want a little taste of Australian Christian Indigenous culture at its best, Murrayang by Stan Grant, highly recommended.
Wow, thank you for
Thank you.
Stan Grant. Is that the guy you keep telling me about? You and Moy keep talking about.
Maybe
Or there's another
we
guy.
had a outing to go and hear him speak earlier in the year,
Yes,
and
it's yes, yes. Because you have a
And
picture.
it's the best sermon I've heard all year, even though Moy's on the other side of the room, and I have to be careful about making comments like that
It's my pasta.
as my pastor. But it was just one of those profound moments where you're in the presence of somebody with deep wisdom, a profound, has spent time really doing the work of thinking about life and God and faith and hope amidst the long history of disadvantage, dispossession, displacement of his people. Um, this is this is some of the stuff that has had the most influence on my faith, my engagement with the world, and has made me a better person by reading it last year and this year.
Hmm. I thank you for the recommendation. And repetition deepens the impression. This is the second or third time I've heard you talk about this gentleman, so he'll
Mm.
definitely get on my list of books to read.
Mm.
Dillis, did you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, so that's my fourth book, and thank you so much, Marcia, for giving me the opportunity to talk about it. I don't know if everybody on the call has read this book, Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson. It is
Yep.
also one of those books I think that's a must read. It was made into a movie, and it just tells the story of how Brian Stevenson goes from being this Ivy League trained lawyer who wants to make a difference in the world and then rolls up his sleeves, goes down to Mississippi, and actually begins to work with folks on death row. And the stories about his relationship with one particular inmate all the way through to this gentleman's release. As a
Mm.
result of Stevenson's work, he created the center that's down there, which name is eluding me right now. But I just think it's an excellent book to read. And, an interesting thing when the movie came out and we went to see the movie, my husband and I went to see the movie. While we were sitting in the theater, there was, the subtitles telling you what year this was. My husband was in school in Alabama when when Brian Stevenson was working with the gentleman. And I remember just looking at my husband and thinking about This wasn't that long ago.
Mm-mm.
The possibility of you getting arrested falsely continues to be a part of the experience for many Americans, and definitely for men of color. And just thinking about the proximity that he had to this, to the situation of this particular inmate, was, for me, it just was, I was like, whoa, whoa, this is not ancient history. This is currently what's happening. There are people who are incarcerated falsely and just don't have the resources in order, to get out of the system. And so, I highly recommend that book, Brian Stevenson's book, Just Mercy. If you've not read it, I would say watch the movie, read the book, and then see if you can get involved locally with with folks who are navigating the carceral systems here, in the
Yeah.
U.S. or some other part of the world.
And he
And
is
he's such an
the
amazing. Sorry.
Brian Stevenson is the executive director of the Equal
That's
Justice
it.
Initiative
Mm,
in Montgomery, Alabama.
Alabama. Yes, I said
mm.
That's what the
Mississippi. I meant Alabama because my husband was in school in Alabama. That was why it was such a connection. Because this was in the 90s, right?
yeah.
Brian was doing this work, and it's, man.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend it. Highly recommend it.
Mm.
Both the book
Well,
and the movie.
this is going to stay on my desk, Dillis. Thanks for making me go downstairs to get it.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So the first time I encountered Brian Stevenson, I was at a conference, and this guy I'd never heard of walked out and he talked for an hour and just talked. And it was absolutely spellbinding. And I'm going, has this guy got a book? And he didn't at that point. But a few years later, when that book came out, you know, he's just an amazing guy
Yeah.
for a start.
Yeah.
And but then the work that he's committed his life to, and the
Yeah.
difference that he's made, and the voice that he has become is just impressive.
Nathan, how do I get to be in the places that you get to be in? Because you're in rooms with Stan Grant. You're with Brian Stevenson before Brian Stevenson becomes a household name. And I'm sure if we stay on the call a little bit longer, you're going to drop some more people that you've been in rooms with and spaces. Do I have to be an editor? Is that what it is?
Just I get to be in rooms with Dillis Brooks, so that's
Oh, that was good. That was really good. That was good. That was good.
indeed.
Touche.
Yeah,
Okay. Has everyone shared all their books? I just want to make sure we don't leave anybody out. I feel like we're doing communion.
I've got more if you want.
Okay, I don't know. Jen, did you have another one? I want to.
I have like one more.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
haven't finished it yet, but it's called My Grandmother's Hands.
That
And
right
Dillis,
there. Yes.
if you can pronounce the author's name, it's
Resma Menakim.
Yes. And so this book, I actually got it because my grandmothers are my favorite people in this whole world.
Yes.
And but this book is about racialized trauma and to learn from our ancestors and our generations from the past about how racism affects our body and
Yes.
how like we can
Mm.
actually feel it. For example, like for me, sometimes it's really hard for me to speak up. Like I start feeling it in my body. And
Mhm.
so there's healing that needs to happen in that area where maybe I couldn't use my voice the way that I wanted to. And so he basically identifies like some of these different aspects of racism and how it's affected you and your body and the healing that's required in order for you to be the person that we're all intended to be and how we were created to be to live in community and harmony. And so I'm so excited to finish it, but definitely one if you want to learn about just how do you control your nervous system
Mhm.
when you're feeling certain things in your body and how to progress and learn from the generations that have already come before us.
Mhm.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. So I have to let me rave a little bit about Resma Menakem.
Yes.
So he is a licensed clinical social worker. So you can see why I'm geeking out about this. And I love his work. This particular book, a student actually, Jen, recommended that book to me. She was here in our behavioral health program and she heard me talk about something and she said, "Oh, you should read Resma." What I love about Resma's work, not only does he, through this story, talk about the somatization, right? This idea of how our body holds on to trauma. He does a lot of work with the law enforcement. And the reason he does the work with law enforcement is because he says so many times when we have interactions between two people, we don't realize that we're both blowing our trauma through each other, right? So, for example, if you get pulled over by a police officer and you immediately, your body goes into a reaction, and that officer also is coming to the car or coming to your doorstep with their own bit of trauma, right? So they're coming wondering if you're going to hurt them, wanting to get home alive, not unsure if you are mentally ill, because police officers aren't trained mental health professionals, right? So they're showing up in this space. They have trauma that they're bringing. They meet us, and we have trauma. And instead of us individually dealing with our trauma, we throw trauma back at each other. And so it's like a trauma soup. And so I really love his work, Jen, because you're nodding your head, so you're catching what he's saying, which then makes me think of another person's book, Bessel van der Kolk, The Body Keeps the Score,
Yes.
because you know how does this all tie in with faith and justice? When injustice happens, it happens to our bodies. And until we learn how to identify that what we're feeling is valid, the inability to speak, as you said, Jen, when something happens to you and you're silenced, your body is still holding on to that because it's a stressor. And so the silencing that happens in that moment is going to manifest itself in some way later on, and it's not necessarily in a life-giving way. So Bessel van der Kolk is also another great book, The Body Keeps the Score. And I'm going to not mention more books.
But one of the fascinating things with that is that actually fits with our Adventist belief in holism, that we're
Yes,
not separate bodies and souls, and that what
yes,
happens to our bodies is so, and so this should be something that we as Adventists have this inside lean on, that our body, our experiences in the world are not disconnected to our spirituality,
yes,
and our faith must also be lived out in practical ways. And this is a part, I think, of our our Adventist theology, even though it's not exclusively Adventist, but it's
right,
something we do kind of pride ourselves on. And we've built whole health institutions based
correct.
on this theology,
Yes,
but we haven't extended it to this really simple thing. And even that we recognize so much that evil in the world is expressed in these ways. We
yes,
can see that evil is expressed, and we can point to something wrong and we'll say that is evil at work in the world, but then we don't counteract it with this same call to goodness and faithfulness in response. And so that's something we need to do our theology deeper and better with.
for sure, for sure. I was looking at the chat. Chris and Sam are going at it. So let's just acknowledge and thank them for being here today and sharing their.
No, let's just ignore them.
Oh,
Oh my goodness, guys and gals. We just made it through Reader's Choice. If everybody has shared all the books that they have had to share, I am so excited that we spent this time together. I've gotten some books that I plan now to add to my sit down with a hot, tasty beverage in front of the fire as we get to the end of the year. Because we're talking about wholeness and holism, Nathan Brown. I think one of the gifts I get to give myself this holiday season is to sit down, like actually touch pages, maybe digitally too, but definitely to sit and put my hands on some pages and slow down a little bit so I can engage with these books. So thank you so much for being here with us. And God's willing, 2026, we will start off the year. I'm not sure what book we're going to have yet, but we're definitely going to keep reading. And we will have another reader's choice so folks can send in book recommendations. And we're looking forward to hearing from you folks as to how the things we've been doing through this book circles, the books that we're recommending, the conversations that we've been having, how are they helping you? How are they helping shape you understand the invitation to participate with God to see justice enacted in the world? So for me, I'm saying bye bye. Take care of yourselves. Be well. Have a great time with your family this holiday season. Each of you can say your goodbyes the way that you want to, and we'll see you next time.
peace out.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you all.